All right, guys, so we have yet another massive bombshell regarding the Epstein story. So an investigative journalist who works for the Miami Herald, her name is Julie K. Brown. She just discovered that her name and her travel information shows up in the newest tranche of files that was released by the DOJ. So she's in the Epstein files. Now, why is this significant? So Julie K. Brown started back in 2018 working on a story about Jeffrey Epstein, and it is in part due to her investigative journalism that Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell were eventually arrested, okay? So here's what she posted on Twitter. It says, "Does somebody at the DOJ want to tell me why my American Airlines booking information and flights in July 2019 are part of the Epstein files attached to a grand jury subpoena? As the flight itinerary includes my maiden name, and I did book this flight, why was the DOJ monitoring me?" That's interesting. So it's important to remember the timeline on this. This is in 2019. This is when Trump was president the first time. This is before Jeffrey Epstein was mysteriously suicided. But why is the DOJ following a reporter? I mean, is there any explanation for that? Where are my MAGA people at? I thought that this was all a Democrat hoax, okay? So if it's a hoax, then why are they keeping track of a reporter who's responsible for breaking the story and also following what's going on? Why would they care? This is not normal. This is not normal for the Department of Justice to be following around a reporter from a local newspaper, okay? This is wild stuff. And the only explanation, like the Occam's razor, is they're following her and they're trying to keep track of what she's doing, what she's reporting on, where she's going and stuff like that, because Trump is president in 2019. And so he wants to make sure that they have her under a microscope so that they can get ahead of anything in case she ends up reporting anything about Donald Trump. It's the only real explanation. Why else would the DOJ be following her around? So, I mean, this is so wild. Like, and it just goes to show you, again, how ridiculously incompetent the Trump regime has been on this entire thing. Back in 2019, they're following a reporter around. And they've had 6 years. They've been sitting on this for 6 years. They've had 6 years to bury everything, to cover everything up, to clean everything up, all of this stuff. And yet it still comes out that they were tracking her back then. And again, why? I mean, like, the simplest explanation is, like, they figured it was going to be bad for Trump, and so that's why. But, like, it just goes to show you, too, that, like, you can't have two things at the same time, which Trump always tries to do, right? It's always, like, the Epstein files, the Epstein story, all of this is a Democratic hoax, right? It's a hoax. It's a total hoax. But also, we're going to follow a reporter around to make sure that, what? That she doesn't report on Trump? And then the other thing, too, is, like, it's a total hoax, but also everything that has to do with the Democrats, everything that has to do with, like, Bill Clinton or Larry Summers or whoever else, you name it, that's in the files that doesn't have an R next to their name, that part's real. But the part that has Trump in it is a hoax, right? I don't think Trump ever, like, fully thinks through the logic of what he's saying, because none of it actually makes sense. And they know at this point that this whole thing is damage control. And we got to go back to that guy that was caught on undercover camera by Project Veritas, where he literally just spells it out in plain English. Here, watch.
Well, those files do exist.
Yeah, thousands and thousands of pages of files. They'll redact every Republican or conservative person in those files, leave all the liberal Democratic people in those files.
And they visited that Maxwell person?
Yeah.
And also involved?
Got transferred to a minimum security prison too recently.
Oh.
which is against BOP policy because she's a convicted sex offender. They're offering her something to keep her mouth shut.
And what do you do for work again?
I work for the Department of Justice.
Okay.
Been there like 23 years.
They're going to redact and remove every Republican and anybody connected to the Republican Party, and they're going to keep in all of the Democrats. He says it, and it couldn't be more obvious. And then another part of the news that broke today was that there was some email that that came out that was talking about how, like, hey, I have this picture. It's got Trump and Ghislaine Maxwell. The person's name who wrote the email has been redacted, and the picture of Trump and Ghislaine has been redacted. But I don't know why they would remove that, because there's literally hundreds of pictures that are publicly available of Trump with Epstein, Trump with Ghislaine Maxwell. We now know that Trump flew on the jet with Epstein and like a 20-year-old girl. We know that he's flown alone with Ghislaine Maxwell. So, like, it's not a secret that he was very, very, very close to these people. And so why redact it? It's one of those where, like, when people say, like, oh, you know, the cover-up is worse than the actual crime, I actually think it's the opposite. I think that they understand full well how bad they look every single day. Not just to me, not just to, like, normie people, even to Republican voters who, I mean, like, a lot of them were like, you know, they were duped into this idea that, like, the Democrats are, like, you know, running this pedophile cabal, whatever, right? Wasn't that part of the whole QAnon thing, is, like, the Democrats are, like, raping babies and drinking their blood and all of that shit? But, like, you've got the Trump regime currently breaking the law by not releasing the Epstein files, as they should have. The law that Trump himself signed said the Epstein files need to be released in full by December 19th. They didn't do that, so they're breaking the letter of the law. They're also redacting out people like Trump and any other, you know, like, Republican figure or somebody who's a powerful person who maybe donated to the Republican Party, donated to Trump. And the whole point of the law, and when Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie wrote this, they said, you need to release everything in full with redactions only applying to the victims, and you need to explain why there was a redaction made. And they go back to even say that, like, they reiterate that, like, this, the redactions shall not apply to any kind of political figure or powerful person to save them from, like, embarrassment or whatever else. And then we learned later on that Fox Digital actually posted this, and I'll show you again here. They said that they learned that the same standard that was applied for redactions for the victims, they also applied for political figures and powerful people like Trump. It literally defeats the entire purpose of releasing the Epstein files in the first place, because of the fact that, like, this was a global pedophile cabal that was connected to the government and to rich and powerful people. So taking them out, applying the same redaction standards to those people, is like, it defeats the whole point. So again, they're taking Republicans out. They're trying to protect Trump. They're leaving people like Bill Clinton in, so they don't even follow their same standard, right? They don't even follow the standard that they set, which is like, oh, anybody who's a political figure or a powerful person, they don't apply the same standard. They leave somebody like Bill Clinton in the files. They've been following around a journalist back in 2019, trying to make sure that she's not reporting on something that might expose somebody. They've been sitting on this for 6 years. At least 6 years. It is unbelievable, the shit that they do. But again, some people say, well, the cover-up's worse than the crime. They have to know how bad they look to their own supporters, let alone the rest of the country, let alone the rest of the world. And they understand that, like, they are deeply, massively underwater on this. But they're going to continue to do it because in this case, the crime is way worse than the cover-up, and they know it, and Trump knows it. And they would much rather deal with the fallout of hiding everything and trying to erase everything than they want to deal with the actual truth getting out. Anyway, guys, thanks for checking in. Make sure you do like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. Click that bell as well for notifications. That way YouTube will let you know whenever I do another upload. And I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.